The Last of Us Part 2 has been out for a little over a week now. There's been all sorts of controversy with the game, plenty of discussion on this game in regards to the quality of its content, the quality of its story, of its narrative, and it's created a lot of discussion around video game reviews, the context of them, the plausibility of them, and those who actually work in the industry who review these things. There's been plenty of discussion about that. I don't want to continue beating a dead horse and just talking about how much Naughty Dog fucked this game up, because there's a lot of people out there that would agree that this is not what they wanted for the sequel to The Last of Us. And Neil Druckmann has gone on since the release of this game to say that there are currently no plans for any DLC. There will not be any story-based DLC post-launch for The Last of Us Part 2. And as far as a Part 3 goes, he currently doesn't know what he wants to do with Part 3, or if there's even going to be a Part 3. I think part of that statement is bullshit, and he's just blowing smoke up people's asses. I think it's pretty obvious that there's going to be another game. The Last of Us is just too popular of an IP, and Naughty Dog and Sony both have just had too much success only for there just to be two games and not have a third, to cap everything off as a nice trilogy of games. So a lot of people are probably saying, well, at this point, they ruined it. There's no going back. There's no way that they can salvage the damage or that has been done. There's been a petition made full of fans that are not happy with this game and want to see it remade, which is obviously not going to happen. But I guess some people just need to vent however they can without being destructive. So I'm going to offer my thoughts on what Naughty Dog should do for the sequel, because they actually did leave some hanging threads at the end of The Last of Us Part 2 that can lead into a potential sequel. And I'm going to show exactly at what points in the game they left those threads. And so, starting in Santa Barbara, California, there's two threads that they left at the end of this game. The first is when you're playing as Abby and you have the Lev character accompanying you, and you go into this basement on the radio, and it's revealed that the Fireflies have survived, and there's an active settlement full of the Fireflies that are open to having new people join their group. And it's Abby's goal to find the Fireflies since she left the WLF.
If anyone can hear me, please reply. Please answer.
Hi, Abby. We got a clear signal on you. Where in Santa Barbara are you calling from?
2425 Constance. We got a tip about a base, but there's no one here. We're looking for Fireflies. I'm a Firefly.
Where were you stationed?
I was part of the Salt Lake outpost.
Who ran that facility?
Dr. Jerry Anderson. He was my dad.
Well, how about that? We pulled everyone back from the satellite stations and brought them back here to home base.
How many of you are there?
We're about 200 strong now, with a few more every month.
Rowan was right. You're about to get two more. How do we find you?
Get to Catalina Island. Approach the large domed building in Avalon. We'll find you.
Okay. Okay, we'll see you soon. Over and out.
Looking forward to it. Good luck, Abby from Santa Barbara. Over and out.
Come on, let's get back to the sailboat.
And then the second thread that they left is when you switch to Ellie just as she arrives to Santa Barbara, California. And she finds an artifact that's titled Abby's Note, and it's clearly written by Abby. If you read the note, and it appears that Abby wrote it to Owen, almost like a diary style of writing. And it mentions that she's looking for the Fireflies at the beginning. And it mentions that she's looking for the Fireflies at the beginning of the note. Now, the reason this is important is because Ellie is the one who's reading it. And so when Ellie leaves the farm at the end of the game, some may be wondering where exactly she went. And I have an idea of where Ellie could have gone. And so I wrote like a small treatment or whatever, basically pitching my idea of potential part 3 for The Last of Us. And here it is. Now, my idea for part 3 for The Last of Us, it's pretty typical Hollywood, but at this point, it's the only way I can see, that they can do a third game and have it be satisfying for the fans. If you go with a theme of redemption, then you can win back the fans who are displeased with what happened with The Last of Us Part 2. And they can also bring back Abby from the second game and have her be a little bit more important to the story. They can have Ellie fulfill her purpose, given the fact that she's immune, and basically make her arc one of sacrifice, where she gives her life to create a vaccine. And I specifically wrote that the vaccine is only administered to quarantine zones. And the reason for that is because that'll influence different groups of survivors out there to cease fighting and go to one of the quarantine zones to get the vaccine. Now, obviously, not all of the fighting will stop, but over time, things will calm down, which is the part of the idea. And so basically you'll have a trilogy of games that have 3 different themes. The theme from the first game is obviously love, Joel's love for Ellie, which was so powerful that he risked his life to save hers at the end of the game. The theme for part 2 is obviously hate, Ellie's hatred for those who took Joel away from her, basically. And the theme for part 3 would be redemption. Redemption for Ellie, redemption for mankind, and redemption for Naughty Dog as a studio. Now, this is the only way I can see them doing a part 3 for The Last of Us and having it be satisfying. And if I had to compare my idea to an actual film, I'd say War for the Planet of the Apes is the one that is closest to my idea. And so that's what I believe Naughty Dog should do for The Last of Us Part 3. And even though I didn't like The Last of Us Part 2, I still hope that there is a third game and that it turns out to be much better than what they did with Part 2. But only time will tell.